Shock! Russian troops have invaded the Dnipropetrovsk region for the first time in 3 years. Urgent statement. The war is reaching a new level. Ukraine's secret weapon, fiber-optic stealth drones. Russia is in panic. Ukraine is making a revolution in drone production. These devices are a real nightmare for the enemy. We will show the truth about what is happening at the front. Details, figures, and footage right now.
For the first time in 3 years of full-scale war, Russian troops have crossed the administrative border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. This advance is taking place as part of the summer offensive and has become a symbol of the shift in the dynamics of combat operations, as noted by experts from the New York Times. According to Ukrainian officers, small assault groups began infiltrating from the Donetsk region as early as last weekend. Maps compiled by the Institute for the Study of War already show the presence of Russian units in new positions. Despite this, Moscow is unlikely to have the goal of capturing the entire region. Experts from the New York Times believe that the actions of Russian forces are more symbolic and strategic in nature. They are aimed at undermining the morale of Ukrainian society while simultaneously strengthening defensive positions in neighboring regions. In addition, control over the border zone between the Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regions could give Russia a stronger foothold to complete the capture of the Donetsk region, as well as facilitate an advance on Pokrovska city that still remains under Ukrainian control. Experts from the New York Times also emphasize that there are changes in Russia's tactics. Instead of large-scale and costly assaults like in Bakhmut, Russian forces are increasingly resorting to the actions of small groups. These are squads of 2 to 6 people who move through forest belts or from building to building, testing the strength of Ukrainian defenses and searching for weak spots. Ukrainian military, on the other hand, claims that so far Russian forces have advanced only a few tree lines and have not captured a single settlement. It remains unclear whether they will be able to hold these positions and use the breakthrough for a deeper incursion into the region. If Russia does manage to capture a significant portion of territory, it could complicate Ukraine's position in future negotiations over territorial exchanges. For now, the advance appears to be a slow but very persistent process that does not bring a strategic advantage, but primarily exerts moral and political pressure. Meanwhile, Ukraine is reaching a new level in drone production. The president has signed laws that create the conditions for the mass production of fiber-optic drones. These devices are especially important for defense, as they are resistant to electronic warfare, provide stable communication, and are capable of operating in difficult weather conditions. Among the adopted measures is the exemption from customs duties on the import of fiber-optic cable used in drones. This will help reduce the cost of such systems and speed up their delivery to the troops. Operations involving the import of goods intended for defense needs are also exempt from value-added tax. The new measures are established by 2 laws. The first amends the customs code and abolishes the duty on the import of strategic components. The second introduces amendments to the tax code, providing tax benefits for the defense sector. Thanks to these decisions, the Ukrainian defense industry will be able to ramp up the production of drones, which will play an increasingly important role in combat operations. Meanwhile, the American Institute for the Study of War warns that a reduction in the US defense budget for aid to Ukraine in 2026 could have serious consequences. Recent statements by the head of the Pentagon about upcoming spending cuts are causing concern among analysts. They believe that such a move will not bring the war any closer to an end, but on the contrary, will strengthen Putin's position and give Russia a reason to continue its offensive. According to the Institute for the Study of War, the key factor that could push Russia toward constructive negotiations remains the achievements of the Ukrainian army on the battlefield. It is precisely the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces that can shake the Kremlin's confidence in its war of attrition strategy, in the belief that the Russian army can hold out longer than Ukraine and Western support. Analysts also emphasize that it is Western military aid, and especially timely deliveries from the United States, that play a decisive role in Ukraine's ability to achieve breakthroughs. A decrease in support from Washington, in their view, would give Russia an additional advantage, strengthen its motivation for a prolonged war, and undermine efforts to achieve a lasting peace contrary to the stated goal of the US administration. That's all for today. Tune in tomorrow for more news.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The effective work of Ukrainian pilots was demonstrated by the command of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The video shows a MiG-29 fighter jet delivering precision strikes with aerial bombs on an enemy UAV operator's command post as well as on a Russian ammunition and fuel and lubricants depot in the Zaporizhia direction. Another depot, this time containing anti-tank mines that the enemy left uncovered, was discovered by Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance in a grove in the Kursk direction. They relayed the information to strike UAV operators who then hit the target.
The skill of the servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine, the National Guard, and the forces of other units today is, as of today, indeed, truly at the highest level.
Ukrainian soldiers note that artificial intelligence is a great help to operators in delivering precise strikes. After all, sometimes you can't see the target through the scope, sometimes the sun can blind you, and that's when AI comes to the rescue.
If there's a target, it shows up here. It's easier to aim when you can see it. Progress is moving forward. War is becoming more modern.
Ukrainian aerial reconnaissance discovered a Russian self-propelled artillery unit, the Pion, and relayed its coordinates to adjacent units, who then turned the Pion into scrap metal. The destroyed unit was worth more than $1 million. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, most of the Russian attacks were repelled in the Pokrovsk direction. Since the beginning of the day, the enemy has made 35 unsuccessful attempts to break through the positions of Ukraine's defense forces in this sector of the front. The soldiers are steadfastly holding their lines. To help the defenders repel enemy assaults in the Pokrovsk direction, they are using the French 155mm self-propelled artillery system Caesar. The soldiers say that the system is fully automated.
The armature is automatically guided.
The cannon is aimed automatically. Look, it's already showing. See? It's aimed. That means it's already ready to fire. 10 seconds and we're ready to fire.
The soldiers are also steadfastly holding their lines in other directions as well. In particular, 16 Russian attacks were repelled in the Novopavlivka direction, 11 in Toretsk, 9 in Lyman, and 5 each in the Kramatorsk and Kupiansk sectors of the front.
They're trying to advance west of Pokrovsk, over there, but we're holding them off. We're taking them out, very precisely taking them out. So, well, I guess they dream that somewhere they'll achieve success, and then they'll return to the issue of Pokrovsk. So far, they haven't managed to do that.
Ukrainian soldiers showed the clearing of a grove in one of the hottest directions. The fighters noted that the operation was successful. The Ukrainian assault group completed the mission. The enemy was destroyed.
I think that without loss,
I'm sure that without infantry, there will be no war. It seems to me that infantry will always be needed. After all, drones are dronesies. Technology keeps advancing, but someone still has to hold this or that grove. And no matter what kind of robot you put there, it can be jammed by electronic warfare. And the infantryman is the person who can both dig in and hold positions. Until our infantryman arrives, until he raises the Ukrainian flag, that land will not be considered ours.
According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the total losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion have exceeded 1 million people. Military experts know that the Russian Federation has already lost an entire army.
That's right. At the time of the invasion in 2022, they had 750,000. Now it's already 1 million. At this point, the regular troops have been almost 90% destroyed. And now new reserves are being brought in, mobilized personnel, those recruited under various contracts, and they're trying to push them forward in different directions. These are no longer the effective troops they once deployed in various parts of the world. That's why now they are trying, of course, to rely on sheer numbers, gathering people from all over Russia, recruiting worldwide, even bringing in North Koreans. And these kinds of tactics, what we call cannon fodder, are constantly being used in breakthrough assaults.
Just in the past 24 hours, Ukrainian soldiers have eliminated 220 Russian troops on the front line. They also destroyed 5 enemy armored vehicles, a tank, more than 40 artillery systems, and 3 multiple rocket launchers. In addition, 72 drones were shot down and 106 vehicles and fuel tankers were hit.
World War III. Trump commented for the first time on the Israeli attack on Iran and made a sensational statement. The US will rush into battle. The Middle East has exploded. What does this mean for Ukraine? Sensational. Kit Kolrak revealed what the end of Russian aggression against Ukraine might look like. Prepare for an unexpected ending. All the details are coming up next.
Israel launched missile strikes on Iran to destroy their nuclear program.
The Jewish state refuses to become the victim of a nuclear holocaust carried out by the Iranian regime. As Prime Minister, I have repeatedly made it clear, Israel will not allow this. Today, Israel is backing up these words with action. We struck at the very heart of Iran's nuclear program. We hit Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists. We also struck at Iran's ballistic missile program.
Iran has stated that Israel will face severe punishment along with the United States, which is Israel's main sponsor.
It's unlikely that Iran's capabilities are so great that they could really inflict. The country won't limit itself to just massive strikes on Israeli territory. In a ground war, yes, perhaps the situation would look somewhat different.
Trump stated that America has nothing to do with it and did not participate in the attack.
I would like to avoid conflict, and Iran will have to negotiate much more actively. That is, they will have to provide us with certain things that they are not ready to provide right now. I am the last person who would want war. I have kept us out of wars. I want to make a deal with Iran. We are fairly close to reaching a pretty good agreement.
Trump was very heavily invested in the negotiation process and really actually counted on going down in history as a peacemaker, that after all, this deal would actually be made. Basically, yes, of course, this can be seen as yet another foreign policy. Well, if not defeat, then at least a failure.
At this time, oil prices shot up sharply, which was a major benefit for Russia. Although the Russians signed a military cooperation agreement with Iran, their reaction to the strikes was rather restrained.
Russia will try to spin the situation and talk about its peacekeeping efforts. Naturally, it's out of the question to say that at this point in time, Russia will actually fulfill these terms of the agreement. In general, Tehran also understands that a war with Israel is, quite frankly, hardly the kind of situation in which Russia would support Tehran.
But according to experts, the strikes on Iran will not have a significant impact on the war in Ukraine.
From a military standpoint, well, the production of Shaheeds has already been localized on the territory of the Russian Federation. Thus, the military and military technical cooperation between Iran and Russia has not gone anywhere either.
US President Trump has once again stated that he is dissatisfied with both Russia and Ukraine for failing to reach a peace agreement.
I am very disappointed in Russia, but also in Ukraine, because agreements could have been reached. They are losing 5,000 to 6,000 people a week, mostly soldiers, but also civilians, because cities are once again being shelled with missiles. Living in a house and thinking that a missile could hit your home is terrible. It must be awful to live under such conditions.
2 weeks have passed 2 weeks to figure out whether Putin is deceiving him or not, right? I mean, by now everything should have been obvious, but instead other statements are being made.
Because Trump failed to achieve peace either in the Middle East or in Ukraine and is delaying the imposition of sanctions against Russia, most of the countries in the G7 are ready to support lowering the price cap on Russian oil, even if the US opposes such a move.
The situation really looks like the G7 countries and the leading countries of the European Union at this point will be coordinating their actions less with Donald Trump. Russia is lying to Trump. Yes, we can see that, and in fact, most countries see it too. But Trump does have leverage to stop the war because Putin understands nothing except force.
It seems that the United States is increasingly losing its role as a world power and its influence over decisions in global politics.
Shock! California has exploded. Hundreds of migrants arrested. The streets of Los Angeles are burning. What other hidden reasons are behind this new outbreak of unrest in the US? What tough demands are the protesters making? What is happening right now on the burning streets of Los Angeles? Watch the report for all the shocking details.
To be continued very soon. More than 100 migrants were arrested in less than a week. This became the main reason for the mass protests in California. Participants in the unrest threw stones at Border Patrol vehicles, blocked the main highway, and set several driverless cars on fire. In response, law enforcement used rubber bullets and tear gas.
Why did the protests erupt? Because people were outraged by the detentions carried out by immigration police. These detentions were happening right in Los Angeles. And, Los Angeles is basically a democratic city with people who are opposed to Trump living there.
The main demand of the demonstrators is to stop the large-scale immigration raids. One of the main campaign promises of the 47th President of the United States, Donald Trump, is to crack down on migrants. He said that within the first year after his return to the White House, 1 million undocumented immigrants would be deported. But as soon as the raids began, they were met with fierce resistance. After the protests began in California, White House Press Secretary Abigail Jackson told Reuters that there is chaos, violence, and lawlessness on the streets of Los Angeles. At first, Trump, on his social network Truth Social, called the unrest in California a takeover and occupation by migrants. A little later, he gave the order to send 2,000 National Guard troops to the city, after which local authorities accused Washington of escalating the situation. California Governor Gavin Newsom officially demanded that the U.S. presidential administration revoke the decision on the illegal deployment of troops.
We didn't have any problems until Trump got involved. This is a serious violation of state sovereignty, an incitement of tensions, and a diversion of resources from where they are truly needed.
Newsom stated that he, as the head of the region, should be the one to decide whether to turn to the federal authorities for help or not, unless the situation involves a foreign invasion or uprisings that threaten state power. Deploying National Guard troops in Los Angeles under Washington's control threatens to seriously escalate the situation.
To deploy, the National Guard like that, I think there really wasn't much justification for it. And this, among other things, is confirmed by the fact that yesterday, close to midnight, Donald Trump wrote on his social network Truth that the National Guard did a great job, that they did their work excellently. So basically everything is already fine after 2 days of unrest. But the problem is that, according to the governor of California, by last night, those 2,000 National Guardsmen still hadn't been deployed anywhere, and they hadn't done anything yet. So it turns out that if you believe the state governor, everything calmed down and got better on its own.
The governor of California was also supported by Democratic governors in other U.S. states. 22 governors signed a joint statement against the deployment of the National Guard.
President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard in California is, without a doubt, a deeply troubling abuse of power.
During the election campaign, Trump's rhetoric was aimed at cracking down on immigrants. But after he took office, the number of illegal migrants being deported from the country remained the same as it was under Biden. The numbers of those deported and detained are not increasing, and the raids are leading to large-scale protests. And it seems that, just as with the issue of quickly ending the war in Ukraine, Trump has no real solution to the migrant problem, only loud statements.
Shock! Czech assault rifles will be produced right in Ukraine, are weapons capable of destroying the enemy. This is not just news, this will radically change the balance of power on the front lines. We will tell you about the main advantage of this incredible weapon and what opportunities will open up for our army when the Ukrainian defense industry establishes a full production cycle for them. The enemy will be terrified. Watch this.
From so-called large unit assembly to fully independent production in less than a year. In November 2024, the Ukrainian state arms company Ukroboronprom announced the start of licensed assembly of Czech Brewevka Bren 2 assault rifles. And now, just 6 months later, the domestic factory is already ready not only to assemble the Western model of the weapon, but also to independently produce all the necessary components for it.
This is already up and running. The first step is the installation and production of small parts. The next step is full-scale production, meaning the complete transfer of the technology to Ukraine.
The Bren 2 assault rifle, according to Western arms manufacturers, is a next-generation automatic weapon. This modern firearm system was developed based on the American AR rifle and the Soviet AK. As a result, the Czechs took the best features from both models and combined them into a completely new weapon, both in design and internal components.
In terms of quality and resistance to dirt, I think the Kalashnikov now has a worthy competitor compared to the AK.
Immunity to dust and dirt is not the only advantage of the Czech Brand 2. Due to its design differences, the assault rifle was immediately well received by Ukrainian defenders. Today, it is quite popular on the front lines.
Everything works perfectly, though we haven't tested its accuracy. The weapon is not highly precise, but the automatic mechanism works flawlessly. The barrels are durable and intuitively easy to use.
At the same time, the Czech rifles assembled in Ukraine have a high degree of modularity, allowing the weapon to be quickly adapted for specific tasks.
What do we see on top? Undoubtedly, this is an advantage. Soon, this will be an extruded Picatinny rail. It is uniform along its entire length. You can mount your aiming devices and any optics along the entire length of the rail.
In the Czech Republic, the Brand 2 is in service with both army and police units. In Indonesia and Mexico, the rifle is mainly used by police and special forces, while in France it is used by gendarmerie special units. As for Ukraine, the Brand 2 is most widely used in the special units of the main intelligence directorate. Most often you can see it in the hands of Kraken fighters and members of the International Legion.
Of course, this weapon is not highly accurate, but it should be noted that this carbine has a fairly high rate of automatic fire. And that really is a nice feature. You just need to learn how to control it a bit. As practice has shown, not everyone manages to do this right away, especially with the short barrel.
Today, the Ukrainian factory producing Czech assault rifles is confidently reaching a capacity of up to 400 rifles per day. However, by the end of 2025, both domestic and Western arms manufacturers assure that our country will be able to independently produce tens of thousands of Brand 2 rifles.
That's all for now. For more fiery news from the front, tune in to our next episode.